Another very, very effective form of entry into the legs from standing position comes out of any front headlock situation. The front headlock is one of the absolute most versatile attacking methods, both standing on the ground in the entire sport. It's also an excellent avenue into our opponent's legs. The setup you use can be any one you choose. There's 1,000. I'll demonstrate it out of an underhook situation, like so. Okay? From any given underhook, my head dominates the inside position of my training partner's ear, and as a result, I'm able to take a hand and bring my training partner's head down and lock up on my training partner. So we go into a front headlock. Once again, in a standing situation, I pommel into an initial underhook. I put my head in good attacking position, and then from here, I bring my hand up, it comes down, and as a result, we're in a nice front headlock. From any front headlock situation, regardless of how you get there, as my opponent comes up off the floor with his hands, it's always possible for us to put our knee down and our head behind our training partner's arm. So when he goes to yank out, it's extremely difficult. This makes it very easy for me to go across to my opponent's far ankle and pick the ankle just like so. Now I put pressure on the head and my second knee goes down to the mat. As a result, we can post the floor and bring our knee in just like so. My hand transfers to my training partner's knee, my foot comes up. As a result, we end up in perfect attacking position in on our training partner's legs. Once again, from any given setup, doesn't matter which one, collar ties, etc. We get a hold of our training partner. As he comes up off the floor with his hand, I go in towards my training partner's far ankle. From here I go across and catch. We bring our training partner's leg up, catch the knee, post, my foot comes up and across, and we end up in the perfect attacking position down on the floor. Now, one of the interesting things about standing position is we can often enter the legs in what are apparently disadvantageous positions. If I'm standing and my opponent is going behind me and has a standing rear body lock, from a standing rear body lock we can enter our training partner's legs. Whenever I'm in a standing rear body lock, I never want to be bolt upright and square to my training partner. Always in these situations I want to be controlling my training partner's hands and coming out with a hip, so that I'm turning more or less side on to my opponent, rather than presenting my whole back to my opponent. From here with high hips and an exposed back, it's very easy for my opponent to lift in, etc., etc. Okay? So always from in here, we turn a hip out and I push the hands in towards my training partner's hip. As a result, I can start to lower my level and step my foot to the inside position. Now, we do something similar to a standing switch. We bring our free hand through and catch our training partner with the knee. Then from here, I'm simply going to post my hand to the floor. I'm going to put my head outside his leg and pull my training partner around the corner and end up in the perfect Ashigarami situation. From here, Kamasara goes to square himself up to me. So we go to cross-buttock position, lift, and drop him down to the mat. Once again, in a standing rear body lock, dominate the hands and turn. Even if the hands stay locked, it doesn't matter. We turn from here, my arm goes in behind my training partner's tricep above the elbow. Make sure we're not down here below the elbow. I go through and catch. Because my foot has the inside position, it means a turn, post, and pull always brings him past us. As a result, we can roll through and end up in a winning position. We're looking at some practical ways to enter into our opponent's legs in scenarios that occur all the time in your daily training. We're looking first at the standing position. One of our favorite ways to enter into the legs from standing position is to go into an initial takedown where the takedown stalls, usually because your opponent goes into some kind of partial sprawl or some other form of resistance. Whenever we feel completing the takedown is going to be more potentially dangerous than whatever benefit we gain from it, a good idea is to sit back into Ashigarami. Let's look at a classic example, a takedown which is used every single day in every academy across the nation, a double leg takedown. In a situation where Kamasara has hands on me, like so, we're going to go into an arm pull double, where I take my body, I stand on my training partner's center line, I level change, and from here I throw my training partner's 2 elbows beyond me, and I go into my training partner's legs. Because my body is relatively upright in this position, this is usually a strong finishing position. Okay? Now typically, if I go to finish a double leg, I'll stand up on the side that my head is on, so that I can rise up off the floor or turn the corner, etc., etc. That's the typical pattern involved in finishing double leg. Whenever I feel my opponent hips in and I can't get that initial finish, an excellent way to finish this is not with a takedown, but an entry into the legs. So once again, if my opponent has hands on my body, I go through and I take double tricep grips. From that initial position, there's an initial level change, my 2 feet coming together, and then off the level change, we get a strong entry into the legs. From here, I see a partial sprawl by my training partner, and now finishing is going to be difficult. Instead of putting the outside leg up for a takedown, I'm going to put the inside leg up for an ashi sit. My hand comes down to my training partner's knee on this side. I go elbow deep around my training partner's near knee, and my head slides from hip to knee. We've already said that the key to sitting to ashigarami is to get my head outside of my opponent's legs. That's exactly what I'm doing now. Off this motion, watch my left leg slides towards my right foot. And as a result, we're directly into the ashigarami game. As always, I look at my opponent's head. If the head moves away, straight ashigaramis. If the head moves towards me, cross ashigaramis. Once again, from a standing position, as we rest in a standing position, I come in, there's an initial level change, there's a pull that puts me into the legs. There's a partial sprawl that tells me it's going to be difficult to finish. Instead of going conventionally outside leg up, we go inside leg up. As inside leg goes up, head goes out. As the head goes out, I fall around the corner, go into the ashi slide. Now we're in perfect position to enter the legs. We're looking at here of entering into our opponent's legs in standing situations. One of our favorite ways of going into the legs is out of any single leg attempt. If I have an opponent standing with his right foot forward and I'm standing left-footed against him, this is a classic example of a situation where I can go into my training partner's legs. One of our favorite ways to work here is with a knee pull single, where I use a pull on my training partner's knee to draw my training partner forward. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate on this side because of my hip replacement, but I'll demonstrate on the other. From a situation where I tie up with my training partner, just like so. We're going to go down and we're going to go in and control our training partner from the inside. As a result, I'm able to pull on the knee and bring my own knee around the corner and go straight away into my training partner's legs. Okay? We're always looking in these situations to prevent his leg stepping away from us. The knee pull is designed to do exactly that. As I draw down on my training partner, I go in and I catch my training partner at the knee. When he goes to pull back, it's a shockingly difficult thing to do. Now my hand goes down, I go all the way around my training partner's leg and catch into my training partner's legs. Ideally, I'd love to catch my training partner's leg in front of me, but I'd be a liar if I said that it happens all the time. Very often what will happen is we'll get into single leg situations down on the mat and he'll go into a sprawl with a wisdom and we won't be able to control the leg adequately. In these situations, as the leg goes back, we're going to post our hand down on the mat and put our foot inside our training partner's shoelaces, just like so. Okay? I have a base of support with the hand, a good grip around our training partner's leg, and inside position with my left foot. Even when he goes into a full sprawl, I can hold it because of my action of the hand on the mat. If I didn't have that hand on the mat and he went into a full sprawl, I'd quickly get flattened out underneath my opponent. But when I see that sprawl go on, I post, I put my foot in just like so. Now I'm going to go into a knee slide. As always, we slide towards the other leg so that my head starts to come out. I bring my leg underneath and I draw him straight past us and into the ashigarami position. As always, we look at his head. If the head moves away, the heel will be exposed. If he protects the heel by bringing the head forwards, he'll expose the second leg into cross Ashigurami. So, from a single leg situation, we're in here, I feel weight, I sprawl, I post on the floor. I put my foot in and I slide towards the opposite leg. As a result, we can lift up into the Ashigurami situation and then go into winning positions. We're looking at practical ways to go into our training partner's legs in 4 main scenarios: standing position, ground on top, ground on bottom, and double seated position. Probably the single most common means of entering into the legs used by my students, myself, everyone who's ever been coached by me, is to enter into the legs from the bottom position. There's a reason for this. Whenever we have 2 athletes in front of each other, one is on 2 knees and one is in bottom position, let's understand something here. When Bernardo Faria goes to wrestle from this position, he can wrestle with 4 limbs, 2 legs and 2 arms. Kyle Massaro, on the other hand, is largely limited to passing with 2 arms. Why? Because the majority of the work done by his legs is weight bearing. He has to stay in the top position. Because of this, most of his manipulations are done through the upper body, but Bernardo can manipulate through legs and arms together. It's essentially a 4 versus 2 situation. Moreover, the strength of Bernardo's legs is vastly greater than the strength of Carl's arms. So even though on the face of it, you're in bottom position, most people think this is inferior, there are a huge number of advantages being the bottom player in these situations. You have 4 limbs to work with instead of 2, and you are inherently stable because you are either on your buttocks or your back. Kyle Massaro, on the other hand, is only as stable as the base of support underneath him. In this case, it's 2 knees. If he stands up, it's 2 feet. Okay? So Bernardo can play a Kazushi-based game and disrupt Kyle's balance as he goes to stand or kneel in front of him. But there's not really a Kazushi-based game for Kyle to play on Bernardo. There's kind of an asymmetry there. Considerations like this led me to believe this is one of the absolute best scenarios to go into and start hunting for our opponent's legs. What we need is a strong sense of what we call Kazushi, or off-balancing. Now, let's look at the idea of entering into our opponent's legs from bottom position. This is where the overwhelming majority of our entries into our opponent's legs come from in competition and training. Let's look at the first, the most fundamental, in my opinion, the most important one to learn. This is the idea of elevating our opponent and entering into our opponent's legs. What's the problem we're dealing with? The problem is that my opponent has deliberately shortened his legs by putting his knees on the mat. As long as the knees are on the mat, it's extremely difficult for me to get into most forms of a Rimi Ashigurami. So what we need is to elevate our opponent so those knees start coming off the floor. The question is, how are you going to do this on someone who doesn't want to be elevated? Let's look first at what's going to make it difficult for me to elevate somebody. The most obvious thing here is head position. If my opponent's head is below my shoulders, it's extremely hard for me to elevate my opponent. Okay? Even if I had solid grips in this position, when the head is below my front deltoid, elevation is always extremely difficult. That's why many experienced guard players, when they first go to enter into butterfly guard, sitting down, Carl, will first establish an inside position with a knee, and the next thing they do is they work with their head at the front deltoid. By putting one knee in the center, I've cut down my opponent's ability to elevate me in half. By putting my head in like so, when my opponent goes to elevate me, it's almost impossible. And I can easily put my opponent's shoulders down to the mat. Okay? Obviously, I don't want that happening. So I've got to be careful to maintain inside position with both feet. I do that by cocking my feet. I don't just have 2 dead feet sitting inside my opponent's knees. They are actively hooking inside my training partner's knees, like so. So if he goes to step the knee inside, my legs follow him at all times. I don't just have my feet inactive, he puts a knee inside, and now he's stolen inside position from me. Okay? So with cocked feet, the next thing is I'll never let his head come down like so into a dominating position in my shoulder. Okay? How do I stop that from happening? I always keep thumb posts inside my training partner's biceps. So when he goes to drive forward on my training partner, I keep my head below his. Okay? I can't be naive in the way I do this. I can't just put my head forward here and stand me down to a front headlock and cause problems for me. So I make sure I do it behind the safety of thumb posts. So when he goes to snap my head down, it's not going to happen. You're dominating the inside of his arms. Okay? Now, I make sure my head position goes to his clavicles. So when he goes to get underneath my head and shoulders, it's not going to happen. Now, from this situation, my hands pommel through. 1, 2, and we're in the perfect position to go. A skill that you must develop as an athlete is the skill of moving your body weight forward from a seated position without the use of your hands and arms. I should, at all times, be able to use my feet digging into the mat to pull my body towards my own heels without the use of my hands. If I cannot do this, this is going to cause a lot of problems in the elevation game. The good news is it's a pretty simple skill. It doesn't take a lot of strength. The way we do it is not by putting our soles of the foot on the floor. You will not be able to pull yourself successfully. We use the blade of the foot. That means my toes point outwards. My head is forward and my 2 feet work in unison to pull my butt to my heels. And in this way, I can cover distance and move towards my opponent. My task is to put my center of gravity underneath my opponent's center of gravity. Now you might be asking, where the hell is my opponent's center of gravity? Well, that's very easy. Your opponent's center of gravity is located 2 inches below his navel, and so is yours. My job is to put my center of gravity directly under his, or at the very least, as close as possible to it. The further my center of gravity is from his, the harder he will be to elevate. So when I work with Kawasaru, my first thing is to prevent him getting good head position. So I take inside posts and I get my own head position. Now, from here, I pommel in 1, I pommel in 2. Watch my hips. There's his center of gravity, here's mine. I need to move my center of gravity forward using just my feet. If I put my hands on the ground to move forward, I've just lost my upper body grip. I have no grip on them. So I have to do this using only my feet. Watch as I go in, and we take him up into the air. My whole goal is to put his hands on the floor. Once his hands touch the mat, I'm going to find a way to get through to my training partner's legs. This is the basis behind the elevation game with 2 feet inside. Let's have a quick review of what we went over. First, I can't have my opponent steal inside position. If he does that, I've automatically lost 50% of my elevating power. So when I hook inside, my feet are not just in inside position, they are controlling the inside position. That means I can use my feet to prevent my opponent's knees coming closer together. When he goes to pommel his feet and knees inside, I'm controlling him from the inside. Now when I make contact, I steal the head position from him, so he can't get underneath my head. Now I go in, I get grips on my training partner. I use my feet to pull my center of gravity to his. And as a result, we effortlessly get him up into the air. Now, most of Kawasaru's weight is going through his hands. It looks like I'm holding him up, but really I'm not. I'm only doing a small percentage of the work. Most of the work is being done by his upper body, holding himself on the floor. And as a result, I can easily move my opponent around in this position in ways that will set up the leg lock game. Now, we're spending some time on the idea of elevation into Ashigarami from bottom position. The single most important thing that I can teach you, I can sit here all day and teach you large numbers of elevation entries into various forms of Ashigarami, but the single most important thing that I can teach you is conceptual. There are 3 characteristics of a successful elevation into any form of Ashigarami, whether it be straight or cross, that you must master and understand. The first is hips over head. This is absolutely critical to your success when you go to elevate someone and you want to put them into the Ashigarami game. Most of the failures to work from bottom position to elevate your opponent and get them into a successful leg lock stem from a failure to get your opponent's hips directly over your head. The second key element is perpendicularity. You have to get your hips and upper body 90 degrees or more to your opponent's hips and upper body. This too is absolutely critical. When I start off with an opponent, typically we're lined up with each other. But by the time I elevate and enter my opponent's legs, I want to be at least 90 degrees to their body, and hopefully more than that. That's the second key element. The third key element is knee position. My knee must dominate the space inside my opponent's hip. That is absolutely critical because it will determine how you control your opponent after the elevation. So there's three absolutely critical elements. Every good elevation into an Ashigarami has all three. Their hips must be overhead. Your knee must dominate the area inside the pocket of their hip. And you must be at least 90 degrees to their hips. There has to be an angle that you work with. These three elements form a holy trinity that creates success when you go to elevate people from the bottom Ashigarami game. This is true regardless of whether you go for straight Ashigarami finishes or cross Ashigarami finishes. Let's look at some common sense examples here. Let's say I have an opponent and I go into any basic elevation. When I first put the man up, you can clearly see his hips are not over my head. And as a result, if my opponent crosses his feet, it's almost impossible for me to successfully get into an Ashigarami. All that changes when I bring his hips directly over my head. Now, it's the easiest thing in the world to punch my leg through. However, I'm lined up with my training partner. If I punch my leg through while I'm lined up, a skillful opponent can still block the Ashigarami. What I need is angle. So what we typically do is take a cross frame. My right hand goes from one side of the body to the other. As a result, I can spin 90 degrees in an instant. And I have a perfect attacking angle. You will notice that my knee dominates the inside of Kawasaro's hip, here. So that when he goes to turn back and face me, he slows down. And, more importantly, even as he turns back, I have the critical cross-buttock position, which means a dilemma between straight Ashigarami attacks and cross Ashigarami attacks. Let's look at how the same three set of principles, hips overhead, perpendicular angle, and domination of the knee inside the hip, occur not only in straight Ashigarami entries, but cross Ashigarami entries. From a situation where Kawa's on two knees, and I have a single foot inside, I place my second foot outside my training partner's thigh, just like so. So my legs form the shape of an X around my training partner's quadricep on one side of the body. From here, I put an arm around my training partner's body like so. My second hand dominates the outside of the leg. As always, I fall across the body. So I catch here and here. Watch my left knee. I punch the left knee behind my training partner's hamstring so that my center of gravity goes directly under his. Now, my whole thing is to get his hips directly over my head. I've already got angle. The next thing is elevation, where his hips come over my head. I'm even turning beyond 90 degrees in many cases. Now from here, my knee dominates the inside of my training partner's hip. So once again, we have the three most important elements. My knee dominates the space inside his hips report directly over my head, and we form at least a 90-degree angle, and in many cases, even more. If I can get these three details correct, I can almost always elevate someone up into the air and enter into either a cross Ashigarami or a straight Ashigarami. If I fail with any one of those three, I'll almost certainly fail in the project overall. We've been looking at the idea of entering into our training partner's legs from butterfly guard. So far, we've been looking at situations where he's down on two knees. Because he's on two knees, we needed to elevate our opponent, get his knees off the mat and create extension in his legs so that we could enter into various forms of ashigarami, usually either a cross ashigarami or a straight ashigarami. Now, things start to change when our opponent starts taking knees off the mat. Once your opponent takes knees off the mat, elevation is no longer important because the legs are already extended, and as a result, you can start going directly into the leg locking game. Let's look at a situation, for example, where my training partner has two knees down, and I go into an arm drag from this situation. If I hit an arm drag on an opponent and he doesn't react, just stays on two knees, there's going to be back exposure. And as a result, it's not a difficult thing for me now to start going to my opponent's back. Your opponents know that. And so when I go to arm drag on this side, an intelligent thing for him to do is to put up his leg on the same side that I dragged. When that happens, his hips are now higher than my hips. So if I turn towards his back, he can easily step over my hips and start causing problems for me. So it's not a bad reaction on his part. It gives him the advantage of height with his hips and an ability to prevent back exposure and get back and recover from the arm drag. However, it does set up a very easy entry into our training partner's legs. From a situation where I get the drag and I see my training partner step up, I'm going to go elbow deep around my training partner's leg and put my feet inside my training partner's hips. As a result, we can take our training partner directly up and over because both his right leg and his right arm are held tight in front of me. As a result, I can take my opponent up and over and into a situation where we can immediately drop him down into a cross ashigarami. Once again, for an initial catch on our training partner, if he goes to put his leg up, we go elbow deep around the leg like so. I use my 2 feet to pull my center of gravity under his, and then I use an elevator to lift, extend my opponent up into the air, and now it's a simple catch. The knee dominates the inside of the hip, and he goes straight down to the mat. One more time. For an initial situation down on the floor, I hit an arm drag and my opponent's knee comes off the mat. That's creating extension. And as a result, it's an easy thing for me to get a hold of my training partner's legs, lift, and drop. We've seen that whenever we want to play the ashigarami game from butterfly guard, the first thing we do is we look at our training partner's legs. If the knees are on the floor, I need to engage in some form of elevation in order to enter into ashigarami. But if knees start coming off the mat, I can go directly into various forms of ashigarami without so much need for elevation. Very often you'll have an opponent who's working to pass your guard and they'll just post a leg. Okay? Unfortunately for my opponent, he's posted in such a way that he's given me inside position with my feet. So from here, I'm going to go through and take a 2-on-1 grip on my training partner's leg. My intention is to get my knee behind his knee. Very often I see people make a common mistake here. They try to pull legs towards them. A strong athlete pushes on my shoulders and I can never pull the leg in. I don't pull his leg towards me with my hands. I use my hands to pull my knee behind his knee. When he pushes on me, I just pull and I get my knee behind him. What brings him to me is not my hands, it's my knee. No matter how strongly he pushes on me, my knee easily draws my training partner forward. Now I have a choice. I look at my opponent's head. If the head moves away, we know what to do. We go into outside ashigarami roll. Step on the other hand. We catch. And I see my training partner try to turn in towards me. This is the time for us to thread the legs through and drop our training partner into the cross ashigarami. Once again, we have an opponent in front of us. I see him post a leg. Immediately I take a 2-on-1 grip. The purpose of the 2-on-1 is not to pull my opponent's leg, it's to pull my knee behind his knee. Once my knee goes in behind, even with no hands, the knee will draw him in. From here, I look at my opponent and I assess where I want to take him. It'll be determined, as we know, ice head position. Most of your opponents are going to try and turn and face you so that they can hide their heel. If the head moves away, they'll always expose their heel to my attacks. We go cross buttock with the foot. Second foot comes around, knees to chest, brings his hips directly over my head. I have a 90-degree angle to my training partner. As a result, we're ready to go. I pull, watch my inside knee dominate the inside of his hip. As a result, we can easily drop the man down to the floor. We satisfied all three of the prerequisites of success in elevation. We got the hips over the head, we got the 90-degree angle, and our knee dominated the space inside the hip. We looked at the idea of entering into our training partner's legs from bottom position. We've seen the method of entry is largely determined by the state that my opponent's legs are in. If the knees are on the mat, it's going to require some form of elevation to create extension in his legs so I can get into an Ashigarami. Once my opponent's knees start leaving the mat, now I can go directly into Ashigaramis with less less elevation. I might still use elevation to off-balance people, but there's already an extended leg, so I can start going into the Ashigarami again a little easier. When my opponent stands over me, a big question here is, can I work my way into inside position? If he's in a stance and stepping his feet to the inside, it's going to be hard for me to enter Ashigarami if he dominates the inside position with his lead leg. So something I want to consistently get into the habit of is the idea of protecting that inside space between my knees. Okay? So when I have an opponent in front of me, I will often position my feet across my training partner's lead foot. Okay? Once my foot goes across the lead foot, I use my second foot to pull my body forward so that I get closer to my opponent. Okay? So my first thing is to protect the space between my knees. Okay? I bring my foot across my training partner's foot to the inside position. Then I bring my second leg in place and I use the blades of my feet to pull myself to my opponent. Now I get my shoelaces to his shoelaces and I immediately go out and I go wrist deep around my training partner's knee. Don't grab finger deep. The idea is I want to go with a palm down grip, wrist deep around the leg. Commonly I see people gripping with the palm more or less pointing to the wall and fingers around the leg. This will not be sufficient. Okay? I want to block the lead leg. I go wrist deep, palm down, and as a result, I get a good ability to take people out of balance. Presumably he's going to have his leg back and working like so. Okay? He's probably getting hands posted on the upper body, etc., etc. Okay? So once again, how to establish contact on a standing opponent. First, I've got to do something to protect the space between my knees. When I see him aggressively coming in towards me, I want to make sure I guard that space. Okay? Now, I want to get closer to him, so I use my feet to draw my body closer. I get an effective grip by going palm down, wrist deep, and locking around my training partner's leg. As a result, I can put a hand on the floor, start moving our training partner and manipulating his ability to step. Every time he goes to step away from me, I can easily make his foot come towards me just by pulling my left hand towards my right. I can manipulate where and when he steps just by this simple action. Every time he steps back and away, I can make that man step at will. Okay? Not only can I make my opponent step, in many ways, I can off balance, I can catch his foot mid-step. For example, I'm catching the foot into various forms of Ashigurumi, etc., etc. Once again, I start by blocking the inside space, moving towards my opponent, and locking up on my training partner. From here, so many ways for us to go on the attack. One of my favorite is to put weight on this leg by getting my opponent to step with it. I get my opponent to step, so most of the weight is now on this leg. That's going to make it very easy for me to chop the inside of my opponent's leg and then from here elevate the second leg. As a result, we can fire into Ashigaramis on either one of my training partner's legs. As always, I look at my opponent's head to assess which way I want to go. Most of your opponents are going to be looking to square up. As a result, it's a good time for me to use that cross-buttock elevator to get our opponent up, bring my second foot through and around, bring his hips over my head, and drop my opponent to the floor. Once again, I have an opponent in stance in front of me. As he goes to move forward, I make sure I guard the inside space. I move towards my training partner and lock up. I want to attack the near leg, so I put the weight on this leg. Now, I go inside, I turn to an angle, lifting, elevating, and bringing my legs up into an Ashigarami. From here, so many ways for us to work. probably the one we use most in competition, is to thread our legs through and around, knees to chest, lift, and drop. We're looking at the idea of entering into our training partner's legs when the knees start coming off the mat and we're in a seated position. We've seen that it's our desiderata to always defend the space between our knees. When our opponent starts stepping in towards it, that's good for him, bad for me. Once he gets his feet up to my knee line, it's hard for me now to start recovering inside position. So whenever I see someone aggressively coming towards me, my first thing is always to cover the space between my knees and ensure that I get inside position with my feet. Now, I can't just stay here, okay? My opponent will eventually pommel his foot back into inside position. So once I've taken inside position, I need to now maintain it. We do that by putting our feet on the floor and bringing our body towards his, using just our legs. Don't try to put hands on the mat and move towards people. Now you have nothing to grip with, okay? I should be able to do this just with my feet alone. As my feet pull me along the mat, I get ready to grip my training partner and come through and get a decisive grip around my training partner's leg. Now, I know I can make my opponent step at will from this position. Why? Every time his foot goes back, no matter how far, it's the easiest thing in the world for me to put my hand on the floor and pull my left hand to my right. I know ahead of time that he's going to have to take that step, otherwise he's going to face palm. Okay? We know that in the previous sitting we saw the idea of attacking the near leg. Now let's look at the idea of attacking the far leg. From the same position, it's very easy for me to take an outside grip on my training partner and put my foot behind my training partner's far foot. Okay? So my foot goes from here to here. Now I just pull in on my training partner and my body shoots through, not into my opponent's center line, but beyond the far leg. And as a result, I can pull myself in the long mat and find myself in the perfect attacking position to throw my legs and end up with a nice ashigarami with both my opponent's legs controlled. When he goes to resist my ashigarami sweep, he can't. He's got both legs controlled. As a result, he's quickly broken down to the mat in a position where it's relatively easy for me to expose my training partner's heel, start to apply pressure, pushing him into the cycle of rolls, which culminates in an outside ashigarami and a breaking position. Once again, my opponent starts off in front of me. As always from here, as he goes to move in towards me, I want to protect the inside space. From here, I move myself towards him just with the strength of my legs. We get a good grip on our training partner, holding in, and I make that man take the step regardless of whether he wants to resist or not. Hand on the floor, left hand to right hand, you know he's taking that step. I catch the leg, reposition my foot behind his, and now I pull myself, not through the center, but underneath the leg that I want to attack. As a result, we end up in perfect attacking position. We fire up, keeping the second leg. When Carl goes to resist the sweep from this position, look how difficult it is because both legs are being controlled. So we get a quick knockdown to the mat. As always from here, we go inside ashi to expose the heel. We lock up, get our grips, transfer to the far hip ashi, slide pressure, to finishes, and an outside ashi, and a strong breaking position. We're looking at the idea of entering into our training partner's legs as they stand over us and we're in a seated position. We've seen that it's very much in our interest to protect the inside space, the space between our two knees. When I see an opponent moving aggressively forward, you always want to close that space. Okay? From that closed space, we establish contact with our foot locking behind our training partner's ankle. Now, I use my feet to draw myself close enough that I can get an effective working grip on my training partner and lock on wrist deep around the lead leg. We're going to make a transition from the shin to shin guard to an X guard. We know that we can always manipulate our opponent's stepping patterns. I don't care what he wants to do with his leg. He can step back as far as he wants. Okay? I can always force him to take a step forward. It's almost like a magic trick. We can draw the foot towards our hand merely by pulling our left hand to our right. You can always keep that hand steady. As a result, I can catch, this time with a scoop grip on my training partner's leg. Okay? When I come through with a scoop grip, my wrist is bent 90 degrees. I go through and lock. Don't be shallow with the hand. You need to go much further than wrist deep for this. I go elbow deep and lock. As a result, it's an easy thing for me to reposition my right foot on the floor and use that as a turning point. Watch my left leg now. It goes in behind my training partner's knee. Now, the right foot comes up in a conventional X-guard position and the critical right knee behind my training partner's hamstring. The right knee is one of the key elements behind any successful use of X-guard. It's the right knee which pushes behind my opponent's hamstring as my hips shift and my legs straighten and put Kalmasaro's hands to the mat. Once those hands go to the mat, it's the easiest thing in the world for me to switch from X-guard to reverse X-guard. From reverse X-guard, we start lifting our training partner up. We know what to do. We need hips overhead. We need a 90-degree angle. And we need our knee in the inside of our training partner's hip. And as a result, we end up in a perfect breaking position. Let's have a look at all those details again. We have an opponent in front of us. We know what he wants. He wants to dominate the inside space. So we close off the space between our knees, legs in place like so. I move towards my training partner and make an initial contact with my foot. Off that initial contact, I draw my body in, catch, good grip. No matter where he puts his foot, it's irrelevant. I pull my left hand to my right, and I make him step wherever I want. Now, I go in on my training partner's leg. How do I do this? By pushing my leg out. As one leg extends, I go elbow deep around my training partner's leg like so. If I go in wrist deep, I'll never make a satisfactory connection on the X-guard. Off the elbow deep entry, I hang, plant my foot, and turn, and my foot off balances my training partner and makes him take a step. Now, the working leg goes in, it puts a knee behind my training partner's hamstring, which will tilt my training partner forward and put his hands to the mat. Once the hands go to the mat, from here, I switch from X-guard to reverse X-guard. We know what the Holy Trinity is for getting someone elevated up into the legs. Their hips have to come over our head. With hips overhead, now I want to turn at least 90 degrees. We've already done that. The last thing is when I catch my opponent's legs, when I pull down, watch my left knee go into the pocket of his hip and put my opponent down into a winning position. One of the themes that I'm trying hard to push in this DVD series is that many of you already have strongly developed jiu-jitsu skills in other aspects of jiu-jitsu. A long-standing belief is that leg locking, the ashigarami game, runs contrary to conventional jiu-jitsu. That's a perception that I'm very much interested in changing. It's my belief that many highly talented athletes in the sport could easily add on the leg locking game to their already existing skills and get great results in a very short period of time. The truth is, many of the already existent and well understood skills of the sport involve inside positioning, and these can easily be adapted into the leg lock game so that someone who has good, strong, conventional skills within a very short time frame could become highly competent at leg locking. A good example of this occurs with the well-known X-guard. My students are well known for using inside positioning, ashigarami, X-guard, but our primary interest with X-guard is switching from conventional X-guards into reverse X-guards, because it's from there that you can enter into our most devastating position, the cross ashigarami game. Bernardo Faria is extremely adept in various forms of inside position based guards, including X-guard. Let's look at how easy it is for him to go from conventional X-guard situations and with a slight modification into reverse X-guard, suddenly find numerous opportunities for leg lock entries. Bernardo's going to start in bottom position with Kalmasaro standing over him. From here, he's going to go immediately into what we call a basic ashigarami, what I believe Bernardo calls a single leg X-guard. I'm going to make fun of him.
Single leg X.
He's going from single leg X. Now, from any what he calls single leg X, we call a root ashigarami, he's going to thread his arm inside the shin and get a nice elbow deep grip above the knee with his hand just like so. And as a result, he can easily thread his legs now into an X-guard situation. Now, let's freeze right there. Let's understand exactly what happens with X-guard. Bernardo's taking his right leg to his opponent's left knee. Okay? Right now, he's utilizing what we call an open X-guard, where his knees are pointing in opposite directions out from each other. This has the advantage of putting his knee directly behind Kalmasaro's hamstring. It means that if he pushes his hips to the left and pushes his knee to the right, he can easily off-balance someone down to the mat. Coming back up, Carl. A closed X-guard is where Bernardo closes his knees together. And now, with his knees pointing in the same direction, he can easily push the legs straight and get a result where the hands are pushed down to the mat, out and away. He brings him back with the knees. Now, he goes back to an open X-guard, spreads his knees wide, and drops his feet down to the ankle, brings this one here up to the hip, and now he can off-bounce Kawasara in a third direction, down to his hips and butt. Let's come back. Let's look at the extreme off-balancing potential of conventional X-guard. We'll start in Ashigurami. Good. There's our starting position. Okay. This is the safest way to enter into the legs. Once we've got the initial bite on the legs, we're going to make a quick transition into X-guard. Now, from here, 3 directions of off-balancing. Forwards, comes back up, out in front, and straight backwards down to a butt. Okay, so it's got 3 great ways to off-balance someone. Okay, coming back up. Let's look how easily Bernardo can turn this into leg lock entries. From the X-guard situation, first we want to make our opponent's hips as light as possible. Why? Because we know that we have to elevate those hips directly over our head. It's hard if we lift our opponent's entire body weight. So the first thing we do is we off-balance and get his hands to the floor. Now, Bernardo is going to switch his feet. He's going to put what most people think is in a wrong X-guard, like so. He's going to take his foot to what we call the cross buttock position. His right foot is going to go to his training partner's right buttock. Okay, so it goes across the center line. Okay, the second leg is going to go mid-thigh, just like so. Now, he's going to pull his knees to his chest and he's going to lift towards my hand. And as a result, he can kick through and his hand is going to catch his training partner at the knee. Go back a step, Carl, elevate your leg. You're going to catch your training partner at the knee. We call this a hand assist, where your hand assists in pulling the leg down, and then he shoots and locks a triangle around the legs. And now we're going to do a little experiment. From here, Kawasara is going to make his base as strong as possible in this wheelbarrow position. Bernardo, just push in that direction. And you see it's certainly easy to knock your opponent down to the mat. Now his left arm is going to come out and lock an Achilles lock on this leg. And he's going to hold Kawasara in place. Carl's going to try to struggle out of there. He finds it almost impossible because of the strength of this lace leg Ashigurami. Okay? And that's an incredibly simple example of someone who has expertise in one area of the game which is already known, well established, and has been around for a long time, and within a matter of minutes can put on a nice performance into leg lock entries. Let's have a look at it again. We'll start in the Ashigurami situation, okay? Then from here, he converts Ashigurami into X-guard. Now, from here, controlling with one hand above the knee. We don't need a second hand. If we put one hand above the knee, one hand will be fine. It'll give us a free hand to work with. And then from here, we're going to off-balance and put our opponent's hands on the floor. So we generate some kazushi. Now, this is significant. Most of Carl's weight is now borne through his hands. Kawasara's doing the work. That means that Bernardo has very little work to do to start lifting and elevating. He's only got to lift the weight of his opponent's legs as opposed to the whole body. Now, he's going to make a quick switch into reverse X-guard. That's easy. You just have to switch one foot on top of the other. Nothing difficult about that. He's going to go to cross buttock position, where right foot goes to right buttock. Now, the direction of the lift. First, knees to chest. Just stop when you go knees to chest. Now, a common mistake is people try to lift straight up to the ceiling. It's never easy. Lift his leg towards my hand. This is the so-called power curve, where you lift in a curve out and away from your opponent. Much easier than lifting vertically upwards. Now he's going to use a hand assist and pull the leg down and lock a triangle, the inside senkaku. Now, we know that if our knee dominates the space in front of our opponent's hips, it's the easiest thing in the world to use directionality of force and push along the line of the hips. And look how effortlessly he puts him down, like a child. That's one excellent way to enter into the legs. Let's go further than this. Starting again. One of the great virtues of X-guard is it's one of the strongest ways of off-balancing people. You can take a standing opponent and knock their hands down to the floor, their butt to the floor, etc., etc. We're going to make the transition from Ashigurami into X-guard. Now, we see our opponent is doing everything possible to prevent hands going to the mat. Okay, so he's keeping a more upright posture. If Carl bends over, then it's so easy for Bernardo to flick his hands to the floor and off balance. Carl knows that and is resisting. So, feeling that our opponent's energy is going backwards, Bernardo drops his foot to the ankle and knocks Carl down to a fight. He's posted. Thanks, Carl. Good. Now, Bernardo is going to take his knee and spin over his opponent's hip and belt. He's going to spin around the leg, come all the way up and face the other way. So we're going to spin all the way around the leg. Good. Keep going, keep going. And we're going to put our foot in the center. And we're going to keep going, come up onto your elbow. And put our legs in like so. And what have we got? We've got a successful spin around the leg, where if he covers the toes, he can go into an inverted or inside heel hook on his training partner and go into the legs. Okay? Let's have a look at this again. So we try to off balance forward, we go X guard. We try to off balance and forward to the hands for the previous move, but Kawasawa is resisting, so instead we off balance straight back. Now we're going to post our hand on the mat. We're going to use that to spin all the way around our training partner's leg and lift, and we're going to bring our knee, don't fall on the side, don't come back up. Good. Now we're going to fall onto our hip and keep our shoulders off the mat. Good. We're going to put our foot inside. We're going to slide our hips through so that we face our opponent. Good. We're going to tuck his heel through, around, lock our hands. And what have we got? A beautiful inside heel hook for the finish. In the space of just a few minutes, a great athlete has taken a position they already know very, very well and are very, very familiar with, and they've added two very effective leg lock entries onto a skill set they're already very strong in. It took only a matter of minutes to learn and understand what they had to do. Essentially, all that happened is they changed their foot position from a conventional X guard to a reverse X guard. Then there were some simple elevations and movement around the leg, and suddenly you've taken someone who spent years developing a certain skill and then adapted them within a matter of minutes to have two highly effective leg lock entries that they can use in training tomorrow. We're looking at the skill of entering into our training partner's legs from bottom position. We can't show the entire range of moves that we use, the range is simply too wide, but what we can do is give you a set of samples of ways in which we enter from bottom position in daily training and competition, and from there you can see the broad principles that are in operation and adapt many of the other elements of sweeps, various forms of guard, etc., and start to build from those your leg lock game. Let's start to look now at situations where my opponent is in half guard situations rather than butterfly, seated, or open guard situations. Anytime my opponent's in half guard, things start to get interesting because I can't elevate them with 2 feet anymore. I've only got one leg to elevate them with. On the face of it, that might seem like a difficult assignment. It's okay to elevate someone with 2 feet. Can I do it with 1? Absolutely you can. It's actually, in many ways, my preferred way to elevate is with a single leg rather than both. When someone comes into your half guard, it's true, you only have one leg to elevate them with, but something else is in your favor. Their center of gravity is much closer to yours, so you have to do a lot less work than you would in conventional situations. So yes, you have half the lifting power, but the task is twice as easy. So you can elevate just fine from half guard bottom. Let's have a look at a situation where I think most people would describe the person on top as the advantage, but nonetheless I can still go directly into various forms of leg lock. Kawasawa has half guard position on top. Not only does he have half guard position, he has what most people would call a dominant half guard position. He has a full crossface, he has an underhook, and he has good head position over me, just like so. Okay? I think if most people with any expertise in jiu-jitsu walked into the room right now and they looked at the two of us in this position on the floor and they said, who's got the better position? Everyone would agree the man on top does. Okay? In a situation like this, it's easy for Kawasawa to flatten my head and shoulders to the mat and put extreme passing pressure on me. Okay? How am I going to enter into my opponent's legs in a situation like this? Well, the first thing I do is I look at the leg which I'm controlling, and I ask myself a simple question. Is the knee on the floor or is it not? If the knee is on the mat, as it is now, I will take my inside leg and I will put my foot up here to my training partner's knee. I will put one foot on top of the other and place my 2 feet on the mat. Now, we're going to perform a move which we call the knee lever. It's often misunderstood as a bridge. This is not a bridge. I just take my hips an inch or two off the mat, and all I do is I point my knees over to the wall in this direction. Because my opponent's arm is trapped, this has an extreme off-balancing effect. We can quickly start knocking people around the floor. Your opponents will want to base out with their arm to prevent being knocked over. If my opponent doesn't base out with his arm, it's pretty easy for me to trap that arm, bring my hips off the mat, and turn my opponent over and reverse the position. So it's very much in my opponent's interest to take what is now his underhook, and as I perform the knee lever, to base out, just like so. As I feel my training partner go to base out, I'm going to take my hands inside my training partner's armpit, just like so, as a cross frame. Now, I'm going to take both of my knees at the same time, and as I frame my opponent's upper body, I'm going to bring my knees up towards my chest, so that my knee goes inside the pocket of my training partner's hip. This means I now have angle on my training partner. My head is outside my opponent's leg. These are the perfect prerequisites to start entering into various forms of Ashigurami. I see that my opponent's head is moving out in this direction, so we know what to do from here. We immediately go in on the exposed heel, roll through, and end up with the outside Ashigurami finishing position. Once again, my opponent's in a half guard situation. It's in here. He has what most people would say is a dominant half guard top position. I'm going to take my inside leg and bring it up to the knee. That's very important. Ultimately, my knee has to fit into the pocket of my training partner's hip. The only way I can do that is bringing my foot up to the knee, foot over foot positioning. Now I bring my hips just a little bit off the floor, and I point my knees out in this direction. As a result, my opponent has to base out. If he doesn't, he'll fall. Now, we clear the head, we post on our training partner's upper body, and we bring the knee into the pocket of our training partner's hip. I look at my opponent's reaction to this. If the head is moving away from me, he will always expose the heel and give us the outside heel position. If, on the other hand, my opponent's head moves towards me, we know what to do. We gather up the leg, the head, lift, and drop our opponent down into a cross Ashigurami situation. Once again, from half guard bottom. My opponent has what most people would say is a dominant position. If my opponent's naive and he keeps this strong grip, it's the easiest thing in the world to off balance and turn him over. So my opponent wisely bases out with his hands. From here we clear the head. I bring my knee inside the pocket of my training partner's hip. When he tries to recover the position, it's an easy thing for me to go into reverse X guard, lift, hand assist, and put the man down. We're looking at the idea of entering into our training partner's legs from a half guard situation. We've just seen an opponent can take what most people would believe is a very dominating position, underhook and crossface, and even so, you can still enter into your opponent's legs. We looked at the idea of a knee level, which is highly effective when my opponent's knee is down on the floor. Now, an obvious question here is, what if my opponent's knee is not on the floor? Many times your opponent will take knees off the mat to drive more weight into a crossface and put additional pressure. So, from here, Kamasaro's inside knee starts coming off the mat so he can start putting pressure on me. What we're going to do in this situation is we're going to scissor our legs around the training partner's knee. I can't be naive here and just have my legs loose and he starts bringing his knee free, starts moving into a position. There has to be some pressure on my opponent's leg, but I can't have my legs triangle. Now I can't move. I'm holding him, but I've also held myself in place. That's not the idea. The idea is to hold him while you can move around, okay? So from this position, I'm going to have my legs scissored around my training partner's legs so my two knees
point in more or less the same direction. When Kawasara goes to kick his leg out, it's difficult. There's a good bite on the leg without my legs actually being locked. Now I'm going to take my inside foot and I'm going to put it on Kawasara's lower calf muscle, right there. And I'm going to contour my foot to his calf muscle. So when he goes to kick out, my foot acts as a blocker on the back side of his leg. My thigh functions as a blocker on the front of his leg, so that I have wedges on both sides of my opponent's legs. This creates freedom of movement in my right leg, which means I can effortlessly pommel my right foot through and around and get a hook underneath my training partner's hamstring muscle, just like so. Now, normally in half guard, we're always trying to scoot our hips out. Here I do the exact opposite. I scoot my hips in underneath my opponent so that my center of gravity goes underneath his. Usually, I have an initial hold, just like so. A back heel on the back of his calf and a butterfly hook like this. So when he goes to kick out, it's quite difficult. Both sides of the legs are wedged in place. However, when it's time to move, I need to plant my foot in the middle and scoot my center of gravity under his. Now we're in the perfect position to double thumb post on my training partner's armpit, just like so, and clear the head. I bring my knee to the dominant inside position. From here, I take a scoop grip on the knee that is off the floor. From that scoop grip, I transition directly into reverse X guard, and as a result, we get a quick lift and a drop down to the winning position. Once again, from an initial half guard situation where my opponent's knee has come off the mat so we can drive pressure into my face. Initially, I take my knees and scissor around my training partner's leg, so when he goes to free his leg, there's a deep bite on the leg, it's hard for him to move. Now, I put the foot on the back of his Achilles tendon to catch it in place. That makes it easy for me to have a mobile lower right leg, which can easily pommel and hook. Then I bite in and hold the leg, so when he goes to pommel out, it's difficult. When time is right, I plant the foot, shoot my hips, so my center of gravity goes under his. Post and clear. My knee comes into the pocket of my training partner's hip. It's an easy thing for me now. Take a scoop grip on my training partner's leg. I take my second foot and pommel through into the classic reverse X guard situation. We know the three keys to elevation. We have to get our opponent's hips directly over our head. We have to get an angle. And we have to get our knee inside the pocket of our training partner's hip. First, hips overhead. Now, angle. And now, the kick through with a hand assist, which places my knee directly inside the pocket of his hip. When I lock the triangle, he goes effortlessly down to the floor, and we're in a winning position. One of the themes that we're pushing in this DVD series is the idea that many of you as athletes in this world of jiu-jitsu already have well-developed skills, and those skills, pushed in the right directions, can easily be adapted into the leg locking game, so that you can take shortcuts to leg locking excellence using methods and techniques and skills, tactics that you've already been working on for many years. A good example of this occurs in a very popular position in the sport of jiu-jitsu, deep half guard. I'm going to show first how we can adapt deep half guard for leg locking purposes, and then Bernardo Faria will go through some of that. Deep half guard is a position that he excels in, and I'm very confident that within a very short period of time you'll be able to go through and work the moves that I'm about to show. Let's start off with a basic entry into deep half guard, and let's understand what are some of the advantages of working from a deep half guard situation. We just looked in the previous move at the idea of working in situations where my opponent had chest-to-chest contact, and we used a single leg elevator to put our opponent up and get into the leg lock game. One of the great advantages of deep half guard is that the very nature of this position prevents my opponent from getting chest-to-chest contact. It's hard for him to put weight on top of me. In addition, it takes one of my opponent's legs and takes the knee off the mat. We already know from earlier in the day that taking knees off the mat makes the task of entering into the legs a lot easier. From a situation where I have my opponent in half guard and I have an arm around my training partner's waist and my arm is underneath his, We can go through and contact at our training partner's far hip. Now we're going to go elbow deep inside my training partner's leg, just like so. From here, with my body angled across my opponent's knee line, it's relatively simple for me to use the momentum of my legs to swing around the corner and put my opponent into a situation where now he cannot put his chest on top of my chest because I'm facing the same direction that he's facing. In addition, this knee has come off the mat. I have a good bite on my training partner's near leg, and I have an ability to pommel with both feet around his far leg. This is going to make it very easy for me to pommel one foot underneath my training partner's calf muscle. I can use that foot to lift and elevate and feed my own leg in as a hook. Okay? It's extremely easy for me to lift this leg because most of my opponent's weight is tied up on his hands. From a situation like this, I take my free hand and I form it into a cross frame on my training partner's legs. Now I go into a reverse X-guard position with my feet. I effortlessly slide my feet up to my training partner's hips, and as a result, my hips come up off the floor. I double catch my training partner's legs, punch through, and we find ourselves in a weighing position down on the mat. Let's have a look at this again. From a situation where I start off around my training partner's waist, I go through, elbow deep on my training partner's leg. Now, we turn the corner, we go into deep half guard. From here, I start the process of elevating and feeding one leg to the other. At this stage, we're in something close to a conventional X guard. However, by putting a cross frame in place and switching into reverse X guard, it's an easy thing to elevate my opponent's hips over my head. We've got a fine angle on our training partner now, and we're in the perfect position to hand assist on both legs, lock the triangle so my knee is inside his hip, and put him down into a winning position. Now the Faria starts with an arm around the waist and finds himself down in deep half guard. From deep half guard, it's an easy thing for him to start the process of lifting and elevating his opponent and feeding the leg through. Now, he's going to switch to his cross-arm frame and bring his opponent's hips over his head, kick through and lock the triangle, and effortlessly push across the line of the hips, pull his opponent down into a winning position. And you can see that on one take, Bernardo Faria took a skill that he's already expert at, and with a simple modification in foot position, has gone into one of the best leg locking positions in the entire sport. Let's have a look at that again. Starting from a basic half guard situation, where Bernardo has a tight waist grip underneath his opponent's arm and a scoop grip with his other arm, it's very easy for him now to swing and turn 180 degrees and stopping right there. You can see the advantage of a half guard situation, a deep half guard situation. It's impossible for Masaru to get chest to chest contact and pin his opponent's shoulders and hips to the mat, because essentially they're facing in the same direction. In addition, this frees up both of Bernardo Faria's legs so they can easily start pommeling his legs to inside positions. From here, he makes a quick switch into a reverse X guard, elevates his opponent, and kicks easily into a winning position. Then a final push along the line of the hips, perpendicular to the hips as always, ends with him in the best finishing position in the sport.